What's going on? It's your boy Harmonicus from one lover to another. And this day we're going to address common misconceptions about divorce and single parenthood. Yeah, I'd say it's this space that prolongs the inevitable when folks are contemplating divorce. Because folks have heard so many misconceptions, and a favorite saying of mine is a truth unchallenged eventually becomes, a lie unchallenged can eventually become the truth. So today we're just going to discuss a few misconceptions about divorce and single parenthood. And the goal is to be able to break down these stereotypes and provide a balanced, or as I like to say, a harmonious perspective. This will be an open conversation. I will be respectful as well as sharing my personal experiences. Again, for those that don't know, I was married for 16 years together with my ex-wife for 17. We had two beautiful daughters in that union. And yeah, I've been divorced now for 7 years. And I have observed much. And I look forward to being able to invite listeners to listen, to share, to comment, and to also rethink preconceived notions regarding divorce and life after. So, what are some of the common misconceptions about divorce? Well, one of them is that divorce means failure. Have you heard that one before? A societal view of divorce is that if your marriage didn't last or make it, then you are a failure. And this misconception can often lead to a stigma, including a feeling of shame. But is that really the case? Well, let's address a few other perspectives when one considers a marriage. Such as, what if a decision for a divorce was for personal growth? Let's say when you first got married, you were aligned with your views towards life and what you wanted to accomplish. Let's say 10 years later, you realize that your views have shifted and you want to go in a different direction, but your mate does not. You try to work with it, you try to stay, but the longer you stay, you feel as if you are immovable, like you are stuck, stagnant, about to die, because you are not living your truth, your purpose. And your mate is not willing or able to go with you on this next journey in which you're heading. In that perspective, in that scenario, a divorce could be a decision for personal growth. That decision could also be for well-being. If a person is feeling as if they're in a loveless, emotionless, unproductive, if they're in a toxic, I know that word's a buzzword, they're in an abusive, you name it. If it's a relationship that is draining you, that is killing you. I have a friend whose ex-spouse literally tried to kill her because she wasn't happy and he couldn't do anything about it. So a decision in a case like that could be for one's well-being. And in some cases, some folks just recognize that their relationship has just reached its end. For many things in life have an expiration date. So sometimes it's just truly a positive step for both parties when it comes to deciding that we're going to end this relationship on a high note. Doesn't mean it's a failure. There are many statistics that show diverse reasons for why people get divorced. And if one wanted to do that research, they could also use that information to debunk those misconceptions that divorce means failure. Another misconception is divorce only affects the couple. Again, I know many couples, myself included, before I decided that I just couldn't do it anymore. I stayed longer because I just didn't want my children. I just kept considering my children. But what got me over that hump is that I was also part of a relation. Well, I was a child to parents who often discuss getting a divorce. And when I assessed it as a kid, sometimes I felt, man, maybe it just would have been easier if my parents would have just divorced instead of staying for the sake of us. Because in a lot of ways, what we saw, we, meaning my twin sister and I, kind of messed us up for some time. So I didn't want my children to think that what they were experiencing with their mother and I, because we were getting to a point like we would never argue in front of them. But ultimately, we couldn't. It was what it was. We couldn't ignore that we were no longer aligned, and we couldn't ignore that, therapy and the religion, like there was just nothing was working besides that we were at the end of that relationship. And I didn't want my daughters to think that this was normal. So I know for myself, knowing that this divorce was going to affect them, I felt that, staying in that relationship would have affected them more adversely. But children are not the only ones that are impacted when a couple decides to divorce. Extended families. Like, I miss the fact that I don't have a relationship anymore with my ex-brother-in-laws. I love them like brothers, but I get it. Also, social circles. Like y'all become family, friends. Put those two words together. Tribe even. Now it's weird when you have, holidays and stuff comes up. Do we only invite one? Do we invite both of them? Is it going to be awkward? Do we want that vibe? When navigating these changes, when considering these decisions, do your best to move so with empathy, but not if it's at your expense. Because when one gets to this point of divorce, I know for myself, I didn't want to talk to anyone because I didn't want anyone talking me out of it. It seemed like every time I would mention to folks and just vent, that they were just trying to convince me to just stay. And while I understood their intention, I'm like, you're not hearing me. So ultimately, I just had to go inside. I had to do that inner work and really connect with myself and God. And it was clear that I had to make that decision. But if you do have a circle to be able to have open communication, I highly recommend that you exercise that opportunity. And for those that, are with therapy, I'm not going to say it's good or not, but that's another way that one can exercise open communication. And if anything, you can just hear your own thoughts while talking to someone that's unbiased. Another misconception is that divorce ruins future relationships. Some people believe that a divorce taints someone's ability to have successful future relationships. Now, while statistics do show that second marriages end at a higher rate than first marriages, I would say that this is also because once you divorce once, you're a different person. And the book that I'm writing is actually going to go into more depth about that. But you learn what you learn, and there's no way you're going to repeat certain offenses. So I feel that when one gets married a second time and they're experiencing what they're experiencing, they're like, you know what, I've been down this road before. And after a couple of attempts, they also realize, I've been down this road before too. Ain't nothing going to change unless I change it. I'm out. But it doesn't mean that one won't have a successful relationship. Like the same 3 times the charm, like this is practice. And if you have two folks entering into a union of marriage and they had not so good examples of what marriage could be, what are their chances? And if they're constantly judging other relationships, not learning from it, if they haven't done that own work within themselves, there are many variables that can destroy a relationship, not just because someone was divorced. There's importance when it comes to self. And one of those importances, are we growing? Are we learning? So when we have the opportunity to be into a relationship, hopefully one can say that they grew from it and that they learned from that past relationship. And if they did so, they can use these lessons to then build a more healthier relationship in the future, especially if they've done that work and they've really gone through that healing and that part of acceptance of all that is. There are many data points that can also show that divorced individuals are more compatible when it comes to finding a partner after divorce. Because again, they now have that experience. They actually now know what they're looking for or what they need, even if it's what they don't need. So when they're in that selection process, they may choose more wisely, because even though something may look a certain way on the surface, after they do their due diligence, they realize what they realize and they keep it moving. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to explore single parenthood after divorce. There's a misconception here that single parents can't provide stability. Now I get it. It's the traditional households where father breadwinner. In today's day, mother is the breadwinner, or both parents. But some folks do feel economically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, that single parents can't provide stability. Well, that may be true, but it also is not a definitive statement. Because many single parents, I know my ex-wife and myself, we go above and beyond to create stable and nurturing environments for our daughters. And because we're not together, I can speak for myself, I'm able to even be even more so myself when it comes to being a parent, which allows me to be able to be more solid for my daughters. And I know many single parents who do the same. They go above and beyond. They may go to therapy sessions together with their children. When they have their times with their children, they optimize that time so that their children are getting the best of their parents when they're in their company. There are many examples of successful single parents. And within these examples, many children come out stronger, more resilient, and more adaptable when it comes to just dealing in social circles. Because again, they're able to get that difference. They're living in different spaces. So literally they're in a different energy when they enter into dad's home versus when they enter into mom's home. Depending on each other's worlds, children have to adapt to that. Depending on each likes and dislikes and desires, the children gets to learn those worlds. And if the parents are able to be completely transparent and honest with their children, man, what examples that those children get to choose from. No judgment. Now, I'm not going to say that there isn't challenges when it comes to single parenting. Of course there are. I still feel the family dynamic is and was built intentionally for there to be father and mother in the home. It just creates the balance, the yin and yang. So obviously, if one component is taken out of that equation, yes, extra work can and could and would be pulled and required of that single parent. But that's where also that parent gets to learn stability. And as a family unit, all parties involved get to learn stability. Another misconception: single parents are alone and unsupported. Now, I'm not going to say in some households that this isn't the case. Families are families, and that's a whole nother topic. But there are many diverse community resources. The YMCA, every time I work out there, I love seeing all the mothers bringing their children there for daycare. There are many community support services available for single parents, not just mothers. You have your churches, you have your communities, even workplaces now often have daycares because they are adapting to this world and realizing that the traditional family is no longer what it used to be. So they're adjusting for their coworkers. Often, single parents build strong communities around them because they understand the importance of this for their children. And they love their children, for in many cases, their children are their priority. And when they build these communities, it's either through other family members, friends, or other single parents. If in America, let's say the ratio is 46 to 48% of divorces or marriages ending in divorce, that means one out of every two couples you come in contact with will or are or have been divorced. Your tribe is there. Another misconception is that single parents mean financial struggle. Now, there's a stereotype that single parents are inevitably struggling financially. When in fact, if one was to look at statistics, I'm not saying that statistics are everything, but it does show that many are financially savvy and resourceful. Especially, let's say, if someone's getting child support and then they're working, that's like a double income. Like, one can really do well. And then there's other ways too, like instead of perhaps paying child support, a father could put his children on his payroll. And he could pay the same amount that he would pay for child support, but to his children as an LLC to do some tasks and do things for him. And then at the end of the year, he can write that off. Mom gets the money, dad gets that back. Everyone wins. There are many ways that this could work. There are many ways that one can look up and research ways to budget. There are financial aid and assistance available to single parents, federal as well as state level. Single parenthood does not have to mean financial struggle. Now, let's address some gender-specific misconceptions. You see often on social media, we have these fathers versus mothers, men versus women, single fathers versus single mother debates. And I just want to say from the jump that we are all unique in our own way. And we were created the way we were created. We all have our own strengths and we all have our own weaknesses. But we also all have our own unique challenges. But it's often in our differences to where our strengths and our superpowers lay. Let's start with single fathers. Stereotypes say that single fathers are less nurturing, or that they are secondary parents. Meanwhile, statistics show that when children grow up with a father, that they receive more nurturing. Statistics also show that single fathers are more committed to their children and spend more time with their children than when they were married fathers. Single mothers. Stereotypes often say that single mothers are overwhelmed or ineffective on their own. Meanwhile, statistics show and evidence show that single mothers are very resilient and resourceful. They become even more resourceful when they're on their own, and then they're able to teach their children these resourceful tips and tricks. Both single mothers and single fathers bring unique strengths to parenting. And I want to challenge you listeners to see single parents as individuals, not as stereotypes. Especially if you've never been married yourself. Stop judging so you yourself are not judged. In conclusion, I just would like to summarize a few key points. 1, divorce and single parenthood is a complex environment. There are nuanced experiences, but often there are misunderstood myths about what happens post-divorce. And unfortunately, many are unfairly judged when this action is taken, this action of divorce. Please do not get caught up in the misconceptions. I would like to encourage those that are facing divorce or single parenthood to really emphasize and really focus on your self-compassion. I know I discussed this in another video, but self-compassion is really needed during these times. Allow yourself to be tested, but also allow yourself to see how resilient you are and can be. And reward yourself for your resilience. And please do not feel that you are alone. Besides your Creator, you have your army, God's army. Besides your Creator, your source of comfort, you also have your community. You have your family, you have your friends, you have the community in which you live in. If you live in the States, there are many opportunities, there are many programs that will support one when going through a divorce. I also encourage folks to continue this conversation. If you've never been married and you know someone that's gone through a divorce, ask them questions. Be curious. Don't judge. Learn from them so that you don't perhaps repeat. And that can also give that person some motivation as well to know that love still exists. Share your experiences with others. And when you approach these topics, please do so with empathy and with an open mind. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the balance of your day. Peace.